I left classes at UCF. Everyone around me is like, this may not work. Had my baby, was showing homes with a baby on my hip. And I think that was really the turning point to be like, this is my career, I'm gonna own it, and what do I need to do to get it done?
Was that conversation hard, saying, hey, I'm just gonna leave school?
My parents didn't love it, yeah.
In the last 3 years, you've done 40 million, then 50 million, and then this year you're already at 20 million closed and pending.
Media company that sells real estate, which is what we are at the Posit Group. We are creating all of our own assets to own our client for life. They're coming to us. We're not paying another company like a Zillow. We're not buying buyer leads. We're still gonna own our database because we created it from marketing and media. And that marketing and media goes so much further than real estate. If I could give 2 pieces of advice for someone who wants to attract a seller, I would say own an area, meaning like be that expert where you're gonna be, through hard work and getting yourself out there, the first person that they think of or they come across. And then the second thing would be, if you're showing off another listing that you have, show
In the last 3 years, you've done 40 million, then 50 million, and then this year you're already at 20 million closed and pending. And everyone can kind of look at all of that and they see the success in the trajectory, but they don't necessarily see the behind the scenes of what it took to actually got there. So can you walk me through a little bit of how you got to that place and like the things that you think that helped you on-ramp there a lot quicker?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you asked me that. And I think to give the full picture, I kind of have to start from the very beginning. I've been licensed for 7 years now. I've been a member of the Posit Group for 5 of those 7 years. When I first started, I was a single agent, like trying to figure it out. Wasn't really sure if it was going to be the business for me because I wasn't finding success quickly. You know, you hear that a lot from real estate agents. And Ken didn't know who I was, but I followed him, and we actually were part of the same market center, and he had posted that he was looking to hire an agent. It was going to be only his second buyer's agent. So at the time, he had just come down from Michigan, and he was with our partner, Gio. And we had a great interview. We really hit it off, but he was like, you know, I don't know if it's going to be quite the right fit because I live just a little over an hour away. And he kind of closed the door. And I harassed him. I told him, I said, no, this is the opportunity. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there. I'll be there in the office every day of the week. My husband and I actually got married on a Sunday, and then I flew home from Cancun and was at the KW office joining the Posit Group on a Monday. So that's how it started. And the trajectory from there has been all team and just learning from Ken. He's an incredible leader, and everyone else around us on the Posit Group.
So sometimes, especially as like being in sales or entrepreneurship, like you might want to kind of like when you started on your own or build on your own or join a team. What's the difference that you've seen working under like Ken and working with someone who's kind of like done what you want to do?
Yeah.
Versus like trying to do it all on your own?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a good question. I grew up as an athlete, like doing competitive sports, right? I think a lot of people can relate to that in one way or the other. And the idea from coaches, parents, everything was always put yourself in the room where you have people around you that are better than you, that can push you so you have something to strive to be. It sounds fun, but it's not fun, right? To be the best person in the room, because then you don't really have something to help you break your limits. And so I feel like I have found that same place or that same kind of drive on the Posit Group. As a single agent, I mean, I think it could have worked, right? I was following the path. I was going to the trainings. I felt really busy. But when I got open to the world of the Posit Group and everything that I was learning from Ken, it was like so many more things that I could hit. Personal development, professional development, helping my clients. So that was really cool. And so, yeah, I think to answer your question, it's just wanting to be better and seeing what's actually possible. And Ken's someone that's constantly growing, constantly executing, and it's really cool to see.
Nice. And you didn't get into like the podcast we were talking about, balance. I think that started in 2024. I believe. We
finished it in 2024.
Oh, yeah. So started in 2022.
Yes. So we did it we kind of got our vision board together at the end of 2022. We were ready to launch. Funny enough, Florida, right? We had a hurricane come in, and we kind of used that as our chance to like reset. We felt like we weren't quite ready. And then we launched in February of 2023 and then did it for a full calendar year.
Okay.
So
yeah,
gave it a run.
You started the Balance podcast in 2023. You got your first video on Ken's page, the Sorrento one, in 2023 as well.
Yep.
But obviously there was a few years before that.
Of course.
And you had to get up to that point.
Yes.
So can you talk to me, like, what'd you have to do to, like, earn, first, how'd you build the business before then?
Yep.
And then what'd you have to do to kind of earn the opportunity to do, like, use some of the, like, the podcast, the studio, be on the YouTube channel, stuff like that?
Yeah, I love this question. So funny enough, whenever I, like I said, made my way onto the Posit Group, both earning and putting my foot through the door, it was just four of us. So Ken, 3 agents, and to earn, at the time, YouTube was not a big channel for us. Yeah. Ken had just started it. He's like, hey, I think I'm onto something, like this video thing, right? Like I'm going to start making videos and putting them out there and just trying to create community. That's what it was always about. And who knew like what it was going to turn into? And so I remember like sitting in the office and our first lead came in like 6 months later. And it's like, hey, we're onto something, you know? But before that, building the business, it's all the things that we know how to do, right? It's showing up in the office every day, making the calls, executing on the things that you want to do. And it was 3 years of that, you know, showing up for the team. In year 1, I sold 5 homes. That was life-changing for me at the time. Year 2, I was knocking on 20. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Year 3, that's when I hit 40. That's when I started showing up for my own personal brand within the team in terms of content, right? Getting on Instagram, sharing on stories. And that opened up the door to then get on the YouTube channel and take advantage of other things with the podcast as well. Nice.
So I don't know if you've, looking at that 5 to 20, 20 to 40, I'm sure there's probably a few things that you did that helped really move the needle. What were some of those things that helped you build that business? Because for some people, they're still trying to get to that like 2 deals a month.
Right.
And then especially trying to get to like 3 to 5 consistently a month.
Yes, no, that makes sense, and that's something I hear a lot. I would say it's a few things. First would be mindset, as simple as it sounds. Like Ken really took time to slow down and coach us to what is an agent that sells 1 home a week think about? What do they practice when they're in business and out of business? Discipline, consistency. And then taking advantage of the resources. You know, had I not leveraged properly what was in front of us, I think that the path would have looked a lot different, but that certainly helped.
So being an athlete, because you see other realtors, and like they don't always show up to the office or like they're not always consistent. Yeah. Did that translate over pretty easily when you got into real estate, or was there kind of like a curve to getting in and building that consistency in the business for you?
I love that question because 2 things popped into my mind. I would say that first, it happened naturally just because that's the type of person that I am. But I mentioned to you that I got married on a Sunday, right? Yeah. And showed up at the office on a Monday. Well, not very long after, I found out that I was pregnant with my first son. And that is a whole nother kind of motivation there, right? You kind of put your back against the wall. And at the time, I was also studying at UCF. And I really had a goal of getting my business degree, but I couldn't really figure out why. You know, it was just kind of something I think that I was doing. And Ken, as a partner and a team leader in business, like he's great at supporting like whatever we felt was right. But he pulled me aside one day and he's like, Bree, I need you to go all in. I'm like, I'm all in. Like, what does that look like? He's like, no, I need you to go all in. And so I start reflecting on that. And I'm like, okay, I know what I need to do. And I left classes at UCF that week. And I was like, this is it. Everyone around me is like, this may not work, right? Like you need this degree so you can fall back on corporate if it doesn't work out. And I said, nope, I'm going to make it happen. And left UCF, had my baby, was showing homes with a baby on my hip. And I think that was really the turning point to be like, this is my career, I'm going to own it, and what do I need to do to get it done?
Was that conversation hard, whether it's with like your spouse and partner or like your family, like saying, hey, I'm just going to leave school and go all in?
My parents didn't love it. Yeah. My parents didn't love it. I'm originally from Texas. We made a big move over to Florida, actually my senior year of high school. I didn't qualify for in-state tuition at the time. So we're paying, out-of-state tuition to go to UCF, and that seemed like the right path. And so they were totally against it, but I was like, I'm going to do what I think is right. My husband, on the other hand, he was nervous. We did have a lot of conversations like, we'll give it this much time. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, we've got to figure something else out, right? But he also saw the vision of the team. He could feel my excitement when I'd come home and talk about ideas. And so I think that was the saving grace. Because looking back, had I not taken that chance, I have no idea where I would be, in my career or with the team today.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole burning the boats. Yeah,
well, it's and now it's hard because, some people will come and ask me, similar situations well, what would you do? And I'm well, I did it. You just gotta jump and trust that this is going to work. And I remind everyone that, the success that I have found today, I'm so grateful and continue to work very hard, but it's not, lay downs or the business just showing up. It's continuing to do the same things that we know how to do. And the longer you work, the easier it gets, the more opportunities come, right? Because you start to build that personal brand within the team. And I have more trust from people today. But, I think that's the biggest one in the beginning is just knowing what's your goal here and can you go all in to make it happen?
Yeah. When you say showing up, doing the work, doing the things that you should be doing, what are those things on a daily, weekly, monthly that you were doing back then to build the business?
Doing then and doing now, lead generation.
Yeah.
That's it, truly.
Really quickly, before we get back into the episode, do you want to grow a hyper-local media company like Kyle Talbot? He added $20 million in sales to his real estate business using Instagram and YouTube, and I created a completely free playbook in the description below. It goes over all of his templates, everything that he used to grow over 70,000 followers on Instagram, 10,000 on YouTube. So if you want to download it and implement it in your business today, click the link below and download it. It's completely free. Let's get back to the episode.
And I think the hardest curve for me to get over, which this is kind of getting into, some minute details, of course, in the business, but is getting busy with stuff that's filling your calendar, pending transactions. Those are exciting, right? But then letting that clog up space for new prospecting. So I'm really fortunate to be on a team where once we convert that client, we have support with transaction coordinators and other members of our team where it's our job to go back out and convert our next client, right? Help them to contract. So if I got away from prospecting at all, that was steering me from my goals. So I know even today, the only thing I need to do every day to be successful is to lead generate.
So what are the differences back then and today, the prospecting and the lead generating that you do? What are those activities?
Yeah, so we live and breathe in our CRM. So I would say back then, was I using the CRM? Absolutely. Could I live and breathe it and tell you off the back of my hand everything that it does? No. Right. So I took more ownership in my CRM and just know that my business lives in there. For example, a bad habit would be I would have a consult and take notes in the notes app on my phone, right? But then you're not transferring them to the CRM, so your business is living two places, and that's no way to run, a big successful business. So it was taking ownership of that. But then otherwise, it's I wish there was a fancier answer, but it's just doing those same things and doing them well, right? Following through on the things that we told our clients we're going to do in order to earn their trust. But I think the cool thing that came after that, after doing the lead generating, continuing to build the database, was getting over my fear of talking on social media, which you'd never know because now I get on there and talk about what I ate for breakfast. But that ended up then being an even more of a tool that I could use in addition to lead generating and prospecting.
Yeah. So before we get into the social media side and the video, just really quick, were you given the inbound leads from the YouTube and the website and all that? Was that where the leads in the CRM, or was it just your sphere, your past clients, a mix of both?
Great question. It is a mix of all.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have a mix where, of course, it is not our lead value proposition, but one small thing that comes along with everything else that's with the Posit Group is, of course, leads, right?
Yeah.
So we have some people that are inbound to the team, but we're also responsible for hosting open houses, just like you would do as a single agent, bringing in our sphere and past clients to convert those deals. And now I sit at about I would say like a 70-30 split, 30% self-gen,
Nice.
when really the expectation is only about 15. So continuing to grow that and make sure that I can pour back into our people by showing up and taking advantage of the opportunities that I've built as well.
Okay. And so you started the podcast. How did that even come, the balance, how did that come to fruition? Like, why a podcast, and then why a podcast with all three of you?
Yeah.
Like, what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, I love this question because it was such a fun, I call it like my passion project. Like I needed, I think, like that outlet at the time, and it was a blast. Like I could do it again, but I think I told you off camera it's a lot of work, so I applaud everything you're doing here. But our team was growing a lot at the time, and there was some new parents coming on, kind of trying to juggle that work-life balance, and it was something I was very much living and breathing at the time. I actually have 3 kids that were under 3 at the time that this podcast came. So I had my first son, and then immediately, like they're all 15 months apart. So it was like, I'm trying to figure out how to still be a top producer and grow in my career, but I want to be a great mom. Like, where's the line between those things? I want to be a great wife, you know? And the funny thing is these other 2 team members that I work with, one, she's 4 kids now. By the time she had 3, and they're just a little bit older. And then the third team member, her kids were just a little bit older than that. So we could kind of display like 3 stages of life. And so we just, we were kind of shooting the idea around. It sounded like fun. Ken is always so supportive to pour back into us and kind of bring new things to life that we think could work. So we gave it a go.
So was the idea behind it because you guys were moms it would potentially resonate with other moms in like your community and stuff like that on social media?
Yeah, the idea was to build community through moms, whether they were a real estate agent or not. We were kind of targeting any working mom, even stay-at-home moms, though, honestly, because our third partner, Jen, she had transitioned from stay-at-home mom to team member on the Posit Group, so she could give us insights on that.
Okay.
So I would say, biggest thing was just building community and trying to find people that could, understand the things that we were rattling off.
And with like, I imagine you couldn't just, no one on the team can just start up like whatever.
Right.
Like, I'm sure you can't just be like, oh, Ken, I want to use
Definitely
your studio.
Needs to be on brand.
Yeah. There has to be a little thought behind it. Like you have to probably pass certain things, and then you probably have to run the idea by him, and then he has to potentially sign off. Like, what does that kind of process look like?
Yeah, I think it's different for everything.
Okay.
But the really cool thing is that, Ken hires to culture and people that are to the vision, right? So you have to earn more opportunity, right? The more you do, the more you earn, and you're just showing up and being a great representation of the brand. We all 3 were, and so it seemed like a no-brainer. And we got all the support that we needed, from professional editing to being in the studio. It was really cool. And so even though we're not doing the podcast today, that has been a really good launching pad for me to continue content. So that's videos on the YouTube channel. And so for the team, those are typically Ken and I together. Mm-hmm. But more recently, I've started doing long-form videos on my own. So again, an extension of the brand. They're very area-based, bringing a lot of value and knowledge on specific neighborhoods. And that was a new challenge this year. That's the first time I've done that, like being on camera by myself for 15 minutes and making sure I can bring value to whoever's watching. So again, it just continues to evolve, but that's, I think, a good place that it started.
Yeah, and your first videos on the channel was the Sorrento, and then you were in part of the Golden Oak one, and then I think was it a Claremont and Beyond one?
Yeah, so I probably have about 10 plus on the main channel right now. Sorrento was an early one, but if you go way back, I mean, it's not my proudest work. I did a Villages video. So I live in Lake County. This is getting super specific for Florida, but I started dabbling in some real estate in the Villages, and so it was like, well, we've never done a video there. If you look at that video today, it has almost 600,000 views.
Yeah, it's viral now.
And it's continuing to bring people in the Villages. And mind you, that was 6 years ago at this point. So I look back and I'm like, this is not, it makes me cringe a little bit, but it's doing its work. That's what it was designed to do. Continue working, living and breathing when we're sleeping, right? And so that was actually the first, and I've done a lot since then, all the way to Golden Oak just in this past year. Those are listings that I brought to the team, and so we got to collaborate on those and do those together. Those have, if that's the term, gone viral as well. So there's been a lot of cool opportunities that have come from stepping up and being willing to do the media.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Golden Oak ones in a minute.
Yeah.
But when you kind of look at all the content that you've now created, you have the podcasts, you have home tours, you have area tours, and then you create short form just for short form too sometimes?
On Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reels. We've launched that like early 2024, going all in on Reels, which again, learning curve, but that's probably where I have the most fun, is getting creative and kind of exploring a little bit with what we can do on the short form side. And our media team is, of course, they're the creative ones that bring the transitions and whatnot, but it has pushed me to also be better in terms of content.
So how do you think of like long form versus short form, and what's your thoughts on both of them?
I love this. So long form, I never want to go unscripted, but I want to have as much value and knowledge to bring as I can. So I try to get some bullet points together and outline the high points that I'm hoping to hit, but then otherwise kind of go just like hit it off with our videographer, see what shots look cool, right? Maybe record a couple different takes to see what's going to go the best. But that's essentially, outline and done. Now the pre-work on the short forms, I feel like actually takes me a little bit longer because I overthink it just a bit. But I try to come up with hook, right? Like what's engaging, what's a thumb stopper, what's going to get someone to want to watch this. Give some information on the body if I'm going to talk the whole time. Otherwise, I might just go for some cool transitions and then call to action at the end. I want the point of the video is to get someone to raise their hand. And so that's all I'm trying to do from that. But yeah, that's a lot of like scratch, try again. That didn't sound good. Let's go back. And it's getting easier. But between the two, I don't know. I love both. I mean, the opportunities that come from both is really cool.
So was it natural and normal, or did Ken instill it in you, or did it come from like your background as an athlete to do the pre-work? Because a lot of people just want to go on camera, say something, and hope the video turns out well.
Absolutely. Well, I think, no, it didn't come easy. I think I also kind of wanted to jump on camera because I was like, I can show up, right? Like, I know how to perform. I can do this.
Type
but
A.
Yeah. But I also was not good on camera. And I was really nervous about being on camera. And if there's like one message I could leave with people, it's like make bad videos and be comfortable doing that. And actually the one thing that got me over that hump was posting on my Instagram story every single day for 30 days. Okay. And it's obviously been like 600 days since then. So it's just kind of like a domino effect. Like if I didn't have something to talk about, I forced myself to find something to talk about just to get more comfortable. And then that led me to, okay, if I want to be really good at this, if I'm going to double down, support my team, bring value to my clients, it's going to require pre-work and making sure that you're the most educated on the market. You're the most educated on development is a lot of what we talk about, right? Areas. And if I don't know those things, I'm not going to be able to execute well. So that has just become a part of the process with the planning.
So can you walk me through, what does that process look like before you get on camera?
Yeah, I'll give a good example. Recently I just did a Mount Dora video. So that video, again, specific to Florida, if you don't know where it's at. But it took time to slow down and research the new construction communities that are in the area, stop into the sales office, understand pricing and floor plans, because I knew that I wanted to highlight 2 of those in the video. And then beyond that, there was 3 development projects that I wanted to talk about. So I needed to make sure I had an understanding of when they were approved, when they were coming, the revenue that it was expected to generate, what type of jobs might be coming into the area. And then I had to backtrack all of that and think, who's the ideal person that's going to be watching this? Because I'm not doing it for views, right? I'm doing it for conversion. And so even if it gets a low amount of views, but it converts really well for the right buyer, that's what I want. And so doing those things, again, I think it's just being a student of your market, a student of whatever video you're trying to create, and that'll come through to the people. At least that's what's happened for me, come through to the people on the other side of the camera. So
when you say, like, thinking of who you're creating it for, like, how does that come across, whether it's in the script or the delivery of the video?
Yeah. Gosh, I think there's so many ways. We tend to help a lot of out-of-state clients, right?
Okay.
So maybe we're talking to someone up north that's shoveling snow, right? And trying to get them excited about why this would be a good transition for them. But we're also talking to people locally, right? So for them, the messaging is a little bit different. Hey, this is what we do for marketing. This is why it helps you. And this is something you're going to want to know because maybe it impacts your equity. It might change your neighbors, right? And I think there's different pieces that we put in there. But again, just trying to make it less about us or myself and more about the client. Like, how can I help you in this video? And that's the whole reason why we do it.
As like being a type A, probably a high D personality,
Nailed
like
it.
taking that time to take a step back.
Yeah.
And spend all that time to do all of that research, go to the new construction communities, do all of that. I'm sure that wasn't completely natural.
No, well, and here's the funny thing. I'm definitely a high D. A driver. I want to get it done. Actually, would rather just show up and do it. Right. I'm not analytical though, and so I've had to force myself to get analytical and dig in those numbers, which is super uncomfortable. I think a lot of people would just assume I'm also a high I, which that would make sense too, because I could just talk all day and fill the video, but then it might not have all the value. So it was a learning curve, but I knew that I had to step up and make that change if I was going to support my team, support my business, and know that I'm doing this to grow. So I think that helped the most.
Have you kind of noticed, maybe it was a comment, maybe it was someone who gave feedback that gave you that positive feedback that's the time that I spent doing this pre-work was worth it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's a few that I could think of, whether it's people reaching out directly, right, that then want to work with me because of the video or they, have something nice to say about the team. But I would say that in 2024, so this past year, that was the year that really, I feel skyrocketed for me. Suddenly, my sphere was okay, Bree's the only person in Orlando that you want to work with, right? Bree and her team. She knows what she's talking about. She has the videos and all of these things to back up the results. And now I feel I'm still making my calls. I will continue to call people, but I wouldn't have to do that, right? They're now coming because they trust and we bring value. So it wasn't a specific comment, but I felt from the results, it was wow, I love this. I love this business. I want to own this. And now how do I 10X it?
So as someone who is willing to do some of that work, the calls and all of that,
yeah.
Switching over to something that is a little more attraction based.
Yeah.
How is that switch? What have you kind of realized with building that type of business?
I think it's a business that can't be broken, right? And I think as long as I continue to show up for our brand, the Posit Group brand and who Bree is within the Posit Group, it's only going to continue to grow. And that's the biggest thing I'm trying to give back and teach to our team too, right? We're so fortunate to be in the business that we're in. It's fun. Every day is different. I can't imagine doing anything else. But the beginning is still challenging. I mean, in fact, it's still challenging now, right? There's days where I'm oh, why am I doing what I'm doing? But it's worth it. And I think that that's the biggest shift in terms of taking that path.
Nice. Okay. And just out of curiosity, sometimes it's easy to track, if a lead came in from a specific video, sometimes, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
So how do you even, when you start having multiple team members making videos, and you're spending time doing the videos, you probably want to deal with some of the lead flow. Is it just the people who come in from that area? How does that kind of work?
Yes, there's a few different ways this could go. We are fortunate to have these really awesome URLs created by our media team. So it would be something like a website / a word, and then they would go and fill out the submission form, and then you would automatically know that they would only use that keyword if it was that video, right? We also we have 26 sources or something incredible like that, so 26 channel accounts. So oftentimes, they might, find you on YouTube, but then inquire on Google. So we take the time to slow down and ask the clients, how did you find us? Where'd you come from? How can we help you? And our client care coordinators, I think, get it right like pretty much all the time, but there's no science to it.
Okay.
We've just had to get super intentional and purposeful about asking the question.
Yeah, and the client care coordinator is the one that's kind of playing that role of asking on the first call.
Yeah, sometimes her, if she can get on the phone with them first. If not, I should mention that, while we're doing a lot of calls and prospecting, our team in general is an attraction-based team, right? So while I'm attracting people to myself within the team, we're also just attracting to the team because of the content pillar that Ken has built, right? So when they're coming over, generally it's a warmer interaction anyways, right? But that still requires follow-up and building rapport. They might be 1, 2, 3 years out, right? So our client care coordinator, also our inside sales director, she's going to try to get them on the phone first, and then if not, it's in the hands of the agents to take over. So it's kind of like a tag team just to make sure that we get speed to lead, we're talking to them right away, we keep our conversion high, and seriously could not do it without her there.
It's interesting to kind of see when marketing and sales work really well together.
Yes.
And having that team in the support. But I did want to ask about like the Golden Oak video, because that one did do really well.
It did.
And first,
there's a lot of people that are curious about what people living in Golden Oak do for a living.
Yeah. So how did, first of all, why did that, in your eyes, you've done a lot of video, you've seen a lot of video, why did that one do so well?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess start there first.
I think people are just curious about a neighborhood like Golden Oak, right? There's not a lot of content on it. In fact, you can't do a lot of content in the neighborhood. You can film the house that you're selling, but you can't film the neighbors' homes. You can't film the amenities. So I think people are curious. It gives it like that exclusivity. Mm-hmm. That I would say that has to be the top reason. And
you brought the deal to the team. That one, right? That listing, or was
yes,
it the other one?
Ken and I were partnered on both. Absolutely. Yeah. So we were partnered on both. We both did the video together. We did 2 of them last year together, and then it's dominoed with him bringing other opportunities from Golden Oak. My partner Kristen has also had opportunities that she's brought and done videos. So now it's like, okay, the Posit Group owns Golden Oak, and they're going to have all the content. But no, I think in addition to people just being curious, we keep it fun. I mean, we're not just doing these like boring luxury tours. This is funny. Like a really good example is in the first video. Our media team's great, but like every cut that they took and kept in the video, I said dialed in. Like to the point where people were commenting like, take a shot every time she says dialed in. So the second video, I was so embarrassed. I was like, you know what, whatever. Like it is what it is now. It's living on the internet. The second video, I was like, I'm going to be sure to not say that at all. Like it's not even in my vocabulary. And then at the end of the video, Ken turns to the camera and he's like, so that was really dialed in. Wink. So it's things like that like people catch up on, and we just try to have fun, so that way it's not just like the generic home tour that someone sees all the time.
Yeah. So I want to maybe use that and kind of walk through maybe that process of that one.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a good example of how to do like a really thought out and well listing video in terms of like the other ones that you kind of see are like a 1-3 minute video. Agent's not in there. It's not really engaging.
Yeah.
So there were things that you said, like, I forget what it is. There's like in Golden Oak, there's like Mickeys, or there's different symbols throughout the house. Hidden Mickeys throughout the house.
Yep.
And you kind of hinted at that at the beginning.
And we started counting.
Making
it like a game so that someone's like, okay, I have to watch to the end. I have to watch to the end to figure out like what's the total, right? Because people that love Disney love that, right?
Yeah.
It's something fun. Like they do it at the parks with their family. So it's like, whoa, it's in this house too. So that was a fun little add-on.
So how did you think through that video and like, here's how we're going to go through it?
Yeah.
And then I think you also did a little bit of like, it wasn't just about the house. You kind of talked about the neighborhood as well.
Exactly.
So can you talk about just that video maybe and talk through that process for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
really quickly, before we continue this episode, are you looking to grow your YouTube channel this year? We help top agents and team leaders build and grow their YouTube channels and generate an average 300K in GCI. We've helped channels like Brett Davis in Northern California and closed 2 deals in the first 3 months. We've helped other people like Austin Clark generate over 15 million in business his first year on YouTube. Kyle Taba in Kansas City double his YouTube channel in only 2 months. And then we've helped bigger channels like Chris Colgan generate 30 to 60 leads a month the first 2 months we worked with him. So if you want our help to do all of your YouTube for you, click the link below and schedule a strategy call, and we could talk about how we can help you grow your YouTube channel. Now let's get back to the episode.
This video is a great example, but really if you had to look at like all the content that Ken and I've done and do together, that's the format we try to follow. It just so happens people love that video.
Yeah.
What we try to do is focus on macro, micro, macro, micro, right?
Okay.
So how can we bring in location as a whole, what's nearby, what can you expect from the neighborhood, what are questions people have about the HOA, and then let's get to the house. We used to do just full home tours, right? But as we started evolving from, we're not just a real estate company, we're a media company. We're a media company who sells real estate. That's when our videos changed, that's when the pre-work changed, and I think the engagement's just been through the roof because there's a lot more things for buyers to, sorry, not buyers, but viewers, right?
Viewers,
to
yeah.
engage with. Even if they're not buying a home, people still love watching these videos,
Yeah.
which is cool. So I would say that's, like I said, it's not just that video, even though that one performed well. It's just the macro versus micro and making sure that you're touching on things that people care about, things that are relevant to them.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if you follow Gary Vee.
Oh, yeah. He's great with content, too. It's so engaging, right?
Yeah, so his word is like clouds in the dirt. You have to be able to go kind of back and forth,
Yeah.
macro, micro. And for that, in the home tour, it's like being able to sell the area, but then you go into like, okay, what about the features of the home and the benefits of that?
Yes. Well, and then we just did another one in October, just again, trying to switch it up, right? Make it something fun. We went macro, micro again. Ken had another opportunity, and then myself and my partner, Kristen, we were both in the video, like kind of being more like funny, right? Showing off like different things about the house, opening up these like crazy doors and bedrooms that you wouldn't expect. And we were doing it from the angle of being like behind the scenes on media day. So you were also hearing from the videographers and our camera people and showing like, wow, this is a full team with a full production, right? We're not just going in, nothing against going in with an iPhone. That's starting with making those bad videos and getting better. But like this is kind of next level. So honestly, constantly thinking Ken is the total creative, but it's challenged me to be more creative, which I love.
What have you learned about doing a home tour and the way to do it to be more engaging walking through the house?
Yeah. I think it's that, again, that macro, micro. In fact, we have learned, and like what I try to do, whether it's shorts or longs form, is not talk about the bedroom count, right? Don't talk about the square footage. And kind of like a good rule of thumb would just be like, don't mention anything they can find on Zillow, right? Because they know that, right?
Yeah.
Go into the home, maybe touch one quick second on what you're about to walk into, right? This is a 3,000 square foot home, and it's located in this city, which has the most incredible restaurants, and it's in a neighborhood that's in a golf cart district, so you would love being here with your family or your friends, and kind of get them to buy into that lifestyle, because everything else they could just find out from anybody, right? So we're really challenge ourselves every day, like what can we bring that they don't know?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest separations is like talking. It's not just because a house is a house.
Right. It's a house. Yeah, it doesn't matter the price point. It's a house.
And like I had Jonathan Vega, who's in Miami. He tours 10, 20, $30 million houses. Just had Darren Kriz in LA. Again, 10, 20, $50 million houses. And he goes, once you walk through one of them, it's all kind of the same. So it's like you have to find ways to sell the lifestyle, or like talk about kind of what you're seeing in a way that's more engaging than it's just like, look at this granite countertop.
It's like everyone knows what granite is, right? The other thing that we were super purposeful on, and I make sure to always keep in my mind, is never say welcome and never say to the address. Like if you go back on my Instagram, you will see those, right? Because that's when I was doing that. But having that thumb stopping hook is completely different engagement, creating something fun, right, rather than just welcome, because I think otherwise you lost them within that first 2 seconds, and then there's no reason to be spending as much time on the content.
So can you give me an example of like a really good hook?
Yes, my favorite one that I just did, well, there's a couple that I've done recently that have been super fun. But I was standing in front of a home, and I was in front of the home, and I was like pointing up as I was talking, right? So the camera's coming towards me. And I said, where else in Central Florida can you get an incredible home, 2-acre lot, incredible pool for just over $1 million? It's inside the house. So it's, kind of like a question. And then another one, super easy, is you're in the city, and like, if you're not considering calling X home, you're missing out. This is why. So they're easy. They're nothing like groundbreaking. It's just like the energy that you bring along with the visuals, which again, I don't do the visuals. That's our videographers, but it's like a good mesh of both of those together.
You bring up a good point of like energy on camera.
Yes.
Do you have to kind of show up a little bit more on camera for it to come across?
I'm naturally pretty eccentric. I like, outgoing, like I love to talk, but yes, like I think, I have to be mindful of that. Two things. Like, I don't want to come across too loud, right? Because I want to mirror and match the other person I want to get in front of. But also, I don't want to be like too mellow. So I think it's like that balance, and then making it fun. Like, I found that the engagement, especially from my sphere and my past clients, is like when it's fun and they can tell that, like, yeah, that's like Bree and the energy. It's not Bree reading off of a script, right? Or like a transcriptor in the background. So.
Okay. So just getting into kind of like the operational side of it, what have you found? Because obviously you're inside, so might be sometime, but you talk to a lot of agents. Like having the media team, what are some of the benefits of that on a team, and what does that kind of help afford you on camera, like creating the content? What's that like?
Oh my gosh, this is a loaded question, Andrew. This is a loaded question. So there's so many great agents out there, right? There's people that do it on their own, which I think is amazing, by the way. But I've really found my home in my team. It's not just culture, but it's the resources, it's the leverage. Without the media team, my content would be quite literally just talking on my stories, which is great. I mean, that's a start, but it would be nowhere near the caliber that we have across Ken's long form channel, the long form channel that I'm showing up on, the short form. I mean, we have newsletters. Everything that you could imagine is all going on behind the scenes. So the benefit there is that I'm supported by that leverage. It's getting brand awareness out there to our clients, right? If that's happening while I'm sleeping, whether I'm working or not, and then my job is just to show up and continue to convey that brand to people, which is what I love doing, talking to people, connecting with clients. So it lets me focus on what I'm really good at, and then have the support behind me for these amazing people that are creatives to do what they're good at, and combine the two. And again, that has been the shift of coming from a real estate company to now we're a media company. How do we own this in the media space? And I think it's those two together. So
I think that is probably one of the most underrated things that, like, I don't know if I want to say like Ken brought it into real estate, but it feels like.
But he did. Yeah. He's a trendsetter.
It's a pretty big statement to say like he did. So I'm like just being careful, but I think he did.
I'm sure there's other people out there, like I said, that have done it. Like there's tons of people that are great at content, but in our market, in Orlando, and then now the models that our team is showing to other people was really, I think, the first time I've seen it executed like that. I think that'd be a good way to say it.
So for someone who doesn't quite understand, maybe because let's just say they're with completely different brokerage, has no idea what Ken is, about his YouTube channel, and what you do. What does a media company that sells real estate look like differently than just a real estate company?
Yes. So a media company that sells real estate, which is what we are, right, at the Posit Group, we are creating all of our own assets to own our client for life. They're coming to us, and of course we have a cost of acquiring that client, but it's the cost of our content, right? We're not paying another company like a Zillow. We're not buying buyer leads. In fact, we're most often creating seller leads and then duplicating them into buyers and other people that are just attracted to our brand. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is that no matter what happens in the market, shifts, changes, flops, increases, we're still going to own our database because we created it from marketing and media. And that marketing and media goes so much further than real estate. The opportunities it's bringing us just in front of Orlando and creating community and like giving back to where we live is also much bigger than I think you could do if you're just solely focused on converting buyers and sellers.
Do you know any of the numbers around like how many team members or like what the media company side looks like?
Yeah.
And then maybe even some of the overall numbers of like what you guys are seeing as a team through all the different channels of social, like views, leads brought in, stuff like that?
Generally, and then I can at least give you a good idea.
Yeah,
Generally, I might miss a few, but so when you look at the Posit Group, right? Because the Posit Group is the parent company of our media company, the Orlando Real, right? So we have these two brands, but they very much coincide with one another. They support each other, although they're not the same thing, right? I want to be clear; they're very two different things. On the Posit Group side, we have our active agents. There's over 28 active agents that are selling and helping clients. And within that, we are supported by transaction coordinators. We have a chief of staff. We have our inside sales associates and our client care coordinator, right? So that kind of is what makes our world go round.
Yep.
Within that ecosystem, we have a leadership team. So we have our pod leaders. I'm one of them. So I mentor other agents on the team and teach a lot of these things that we're talking about. And then, of course, you go over to the media, right? So we have our social media manager, our director of socials. We have 4 videographers and an in-house photographer, which is so cool. I mean, most people cannot say that they have an in-house photographer. So she only works for us. Like, we can replicate that quality every single time, whether it's for blogs or it's for the real estate sales. She even drives a branded vehicle, the Real Mobile, which is really cool.
That one's brand new.
With Penn's face on the side, so it's super fun. But yeah, so that gives you kind of like a generic look. The YouTube channel, we've been growing as a team for over 6 years now. That's surpassed 50,000 subscribers. The Orlando Real, which is the Instagram version of the media company's social page, surpassed 100,000 followers last year. And now we're on a mission to grow the Posit Group page to coincide with the other one. And we're right on track. I mean, we just started focusing on that and it's already over 10,000 subscribers. So the magic that they do behind the scenes, again, is over my head a little bit, but very, very impressive, and just goes back into the whole team dynamic of how we support each other.
And I want to dive into like your leadership role running a pod and what you're kind of learning through that, and then also the Posit Group, the second channel.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that your content bringing in sellers.
Yeah, that's different, right? You would think it just brings in buyers. Yeah. Well, and that's a goal of mine in my personal business, and something that's been super important to me is to transition into a predominantly based listing or seller business. And I've gotten there. I would say it's about a 50-50 split now, which I think is super comfortable and can survive any market. And the hardest part was when I was doing content in the beginning, it was buyer, right? How do we transition this to get in front of it? And so the mindset shift there was buyers can be and already are homeowners. So we just need to talk to them like they're the homeowner, right? They may need to sell in order to buy, or they're going to buy, become a homeowner, and sell again. So the transition from there was, how is our marketing helping sellers in Orlando? How are they maximizing days on market, pricing, getting more exposure? And as soon as we leaned into that, it was like, boom, we're on to something. And that's really opened up the door to be more seller-based from content.
I'm sure there's probably agents that ask you like, what type of videos or what should I post to attract sellers? I don't want to attract buyers. Like, is it the type of content? Is it where the content's about, from the area, the home? Like, what do you think attracts the seller through the content?
The seller through the content. I would say, I'm glad you asked that. If I could give 2 pieces of advice for someone who wants to attract a seller, I would say own an area. Meaning, like, be that expert where you're going to be, through hard work and getting yourself out there, the first person that they think of or they come across, right? And then the second thing would be that if you're showing off another listing that you have, show what you're doing that's different. talk about what you're doing that's different, because that will resonate with the seller. Like, oh, that was really good. That was memorable. What if I could get that for my home, right? And for us, that's our network, right? We have more reach than any other team in Central Florida. We're the most followed. We're the most reviewed. We can go say that confidently, and other people can't duplicate that. And gosh, there's so many others, but I think like that would be a good place to start. That'd be a good place to start.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. And so how did you guys end up owning Golden Oak? Because now if you search Golden Oak, a lot of stuff is the Orlando Real, Ken, the YouTube channel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, Golden Oak is just one neighborhood that we farm. So farming we still do, like I said, some of the traditional things, right? Yep. Print mail is still alive. People love it. But farming comes with, of course, a lot of other strategies. And so we've just gotten really clear that if we're going to do something, we need to know exactly how we're going to do it and go all in. We're not just going to just send the mailer and hope that it works. So we farm that community. We farm other communities as well. The neighborhood that I live in, actually, I moved in 2 years ago. We started farming it, and we have almost 50% market share, when before, not a single agent had 10%. So, and that was a huge shift in my personal business as I started going listing based and content. How do I grow through this next ceiling? And just shows that it can be done, right? Because in the beginning it was like, I don't know, nobody even has 10%. What are we gonna do? And then now it's just kind of like seller based. People know us there, they come to us, and it just keeps continuing to evolve almost on its own.
So what does that farming look like for someone who doesn't understand that? Like, is it a certain type of message, certain types of topics for a video, certain type of mailer? Is it calling the community? What are those things that make up the strategy to, like, how do you even get 50% in one neighborhood?
Yeah, right. I think that it's being super clear and purposeful, but you got to have the strategies, because when I started, I thought that like sending a mailer would be fine, right? Like, oh, they'll see your face enough, you'll do a couple sales, they'll know to call you. And then when you find out that you didn't get the call down the street, you get like offended, Why didn't they call me? I was like, because they don't know you. So you got to show up in the community, host open houses, be present on social media talking about the area. It's like a 4-pronged approach, right? It feels like you got to really combine everything, I think, at a high level for it to work. And it's amazing that it does still work, but it really is like, it has to be a pillar of your business. I don't think that it's like a subset to something else in order to make it work. Okay.
And is it like you're sending a postcard every month? Maybe you do a video on it every couple weeks, couple months?
Postcard every month. Every month. So that's one consistent piece. Content as well. So at least one video for the year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like one long form video lives for a really long time.
Yeah. Right.
Because you can do SEO behind that. You can share it with people who are in the neighborhood. We put the QR code right there on our mailer. Like, you can't miss it. Yeah. So exclusive neighborhood tour. No one else has done an exclusive neighborhood tour, right? That's really cool. Open houses, again, that's traditional, but it gets you out there and gets you in front of neighbors and shows that you're the one agent that's willing to do this, what we would call the Keller Williams version of the 7th level open house. No one else is doing that, right? So we take a lot of ownership in the activities that we do choose to do, and I think that that's helped me be successful in that neighborhood, us be successful in others, and then kind of take the work out of where's that next opportunity going to come from.
So I'm not in Keller Williams. Yeah. What is the 7th level?
Yeah. It's a few things. Like, if I had to like break it down real quick, it's like, okay, you're going to invite people to the open house. You're going to call around the neighborhood, right? You're going to put out signs. You're going to like bring the refreshments, right? You're going to get everyone to sign in. You're going to follow up with them afterwards and have something of value to give them. So the idea is like you're planning the whole week before. You're doing the day of the event, but knowing that the event's not really, it may not be like a successful event, but it's like everything you did before and everything you did after. And if you execute on both of those, like, you're bound to create some sort of momentum. But I think what happens a lot of times, like, people say, okay, I'm going to go all in on open houses. And they don't. They put signs out like on the day of, and they're like running into the house or ready to go, And to be clear, open houses are not a pillar of my business. Like, we do as a team, and me personally, we establish what those pillars are. They're not a pillar of my business, but they are a very specific strategy for my farm. Because I knew that if I wanted my farm to succeed, I have to do high-level open houses. So that is the one time that I do them.
Okay. And you treat it like an event. It's like
right.
It's like
how do
a
we
launch
make it an
party.
event? Yeah, like one of them. So the neighborhood that I'm farming, right, that I've taken market share in. I have been the one to accelerate community open house events. So this is going to sound a little funny for other agents, but I'm actually inviting every listing agent that has an active listing in the neighborhood and scheduling them all on the same day at the same time. It helps everyone that's in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're going to get more people to come out and see it, but I'm the one that created the map with all the houses listed on it, right, in my name. And then we've done fun things like in the wintertime, hot chocolate. I did a Kona ice truck in my neighborhood for like the kids and parents. Like that was really easy. So stuff like that, just to take it a little bit further. But even if I'd skipped the food and just did the map, like that was like the gold, because it's like, oh, you're the, especially for sellers, right? That's attracting sellers too. Like, oh, she was the agent that organized this, put it together, got it out there. These other listing agents wouldn't have even hosted that house open, right, if she had not taken the initiative to do so. So it's like really old school style stuff, but then meshing it in with what I think we're doing.
New school.
That's new age, new school. Yeah, and kind of making them both work.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that, and it's interesting because it's the culture of the team, like collaboration, like no ego, being more. Like,
we actually have our key characteristics: hungry, humble, curious, and social. That's what an agent embodies. Now our staff, same things: hungry, humble, curious, and caring.
Caring. Okay, that's where the
So that gives you an idea.
like C of the disc personality comes in a little bit.
Exactly. We need that, right?
Yeah.
We need that in terms of like balance and support. So yeah, to your point, like we all collaborate with each other. We support each other. We cheer each other on. There's no animosity on the team, which is amazing. That's how we're all able to grow. And that's what's pushed me to be so much better.
Nice.
Getting in the room where there's bigger players, right? We talked about that at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's like continuing to push the edges, which I think you and Ken and the team do at a really high level, just to make the point. The example is the Posit Group second channel, which is new.
Which is new, yeah, and growing.
Yeah. So how much, like, because now Ken doesn't necessarily have to be as like safeguarded with the channel in a way.
Yeah.
Because the main channel has to be probably very, very strategic.
Yeah, well, because what we found was like if we went too niche on the main channel, the video flopped, which we're not trying to make every video go viral, but his video attracts a lot more than just a buyer or seller, right? So it's like, okay, well, what do we need to do different?
Yeah. So what does that second channel look like? Do you get to make more content on that second channel now?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's much more niche, and we have like full reign, which is, like I said, it was scary.
A little bit fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so fun, but it was so scary. I hardly get nervous for video anymore, and I was like sweating going into my first long form video. But so the idea is like we can go a lot deeper on the content that we want to talk about. We don't have to keep it so high level for the views on the main channel. So, like a video that I did on Mount Dora, Florida, I can slow down and go in those new construction neighborhoods and talk about other things that maybe we couldn't make the cut in the other video. And then I get to share personal experience, share stories, and just bring some like perspective to it all. And then, it's going to be a channel that basically lives forever, because when you go deep like that, there's so many things you can talk about and do.
Yeah.
So I'm doing about like one a month right now. I think we'll ramp that up, but the goal is to have 12 by the end of the year. And I think the other really cool thing about this, where it's so awesome to be on a team like the Posit Group, Ken is the face of our brand, right? But he's also given us this opportunity to create our brand within the team. So personal brand, attract people to us. And now we know that this channel is working even without Ken's face on it.
Yeah.
So we're showing up and we're embodying the brand. It's the same thing you'd expect from any agent on the team. But the brand is still growing. And that was a shift for us to see if that was going to work or not. And so far it is. So it's been exciting to try something new like that.
Can you walk me through like the emotions of doing your first 15-minute video, just you?
Well, thankfully I've been watching my partner Ken do it for a long time. So I could just like binge watch a couple of his videos and be like, okay, I've got a good outline.
So you kind of, what's it called? I don't know why I'm like, not play tape, but where you watch the film before.
Yeah, like watching film. It was kind of like that. You're like, okay, like I'm ready. I was like, this is a great example. I can follow this kind of rhythm, you know, but then just trying to put my own spin on whatever I was talking about. So of course, lots of prep. But I also feel like I do well under pressure. So I was like, okay, if I can just get the basics, then I'll show up and I'll perform on the day of. And that's kind of how it worked out. Once I got going, like I felt comfortable. Our media team makes you feel super good about yourself while you're going. But I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of pressure because it's not just about me. It's about my team, right? Like we all use each other's videos to send to clients because one might do one on this area, but I'm not going to do one on that area, but I still need to share that with someone. So it's like, how do we represent our brand and the team's brand at a really high level? And I think that's probably what makes it so nervous. I mean, I know about Mount Dora, but like I want to make it look like the Posit Group knows about Mount Dora. So
yeah, and going back to what you said, being able to go a little more deep.
Yeah.
The example of that is like on Ken's channel, you have to keep it more broad Orlando.
Yeah, more macro, I would say.
Yeah, and then on the Posit Group, you can go into like, here's like this restaurant in Mount Dora.
Right.
Here's why. Like
the main channel, I would compare it to national scale to like county, city scale.
Okay.
For the most part. I mean, we still throw in home tours, but it would be more something like, if you're familiar with Orange County, right? Orange County update, 5 best homes for sale in Orange County, right? And then it would kind of be sprinkled in. Whereas the other one, I would say it's kind of like county, city, restaurant, right? Like you can really go all the way in. And so it's new, it's different. It's actually kind of the way that Ken started. His is just like skyrocketed. So who knows, the format on the Posit Group channel might change, but it's given us an opportunity, I think, to bring even a little bit more to the people that are watching.
Nice. And so what's it like, because there's different videographers. There's ones who just kind of are there and they're just filming you.
Right.
And then there's other videographers who will instruct you, kind of give you that feedback, kind of walk you through, kind of be a director.
Yeah.
What's that like? And then can you give examples of like stuff they'll do in a video, like the Mount Dora one, to help?
Yeah. So I think it's a mix. Like of course we're responsible for doing our pre-work. I take a lot of ownership in prepping, so I don't expect them to direct everything. But in terms of angle shots or like, hey, I could tell maybe you were a little nervous. You want to do a safety take or like loosen up a little bit, right? Like you look great, like you're doing that. It's just like that little affirmation and like building us up. And their personalities are so fun. They have a ton of experience even before joining the Posit Group. So just like top-notch professionals that have walked through that. So I would say it's a little bit of directing, a little bit of moral support, and then doing what they're good at. But for the most part, like I have to really be ready to show up and deliver. Like if I go there and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, they'd be like, we need to reschedule. So that's been a big learning curve. But honestly, like content is, I love selling real estate, but what I love even more than that is doing the content to sell the real estate. So it's just been so fun and not something I honestly ever thought that I would do or that I even saw on the horizon, joining the team five, almost 6 years ago.
So what's the next few years kind of look like? What do you envision for like kind of like what you want to build with like the content, the media, your business? Like what's that? I'm sure you have some type of vision in your head.
That's such a great question. Yeah. Well, I think I feel so fortunate to be in the place I am, right? Because like I said, it's just been a straight hockey stick of growth. Sold 5 homes on my first year with the Posit Group. Last year sold over $50 million with 55 homes, right? It's been a ride. And now the mindset is, how big can we go? Like how big can we grow? And so that could mean a lot of different things. Yeah. But I think my first challenge, like for myself this year, is I'd really love to hit 80 units. So helping 80 families, doing that by creating more content, right? So having more of like those hand raisers that come and gravitate and they're like my ideal client, right? And then beyond that, I think I already have so much leverage on the team, but it's going to be creating more leverage and seeing what we can do to expand different roles and see what comes from that. But the leadership role will still continue on the team. That's a big part of my life, something I absolutely love on the team. I think that's actually been what's pushed me the most to be a better agent, is having that opportunity to mentor. It's kind of done the reverse. It's mentored me, which I love. And then outside of that, like this is funny. I'm going to die on the Posit Group. Like this is where I live and breathe. So I'm going to follow whatever path is right. But I think what it's going to look like is just exponential growth.
Man, I want to pull that thread for a second, but I have to ask, what does more content mean? Like, what are you, for example, like this year, like what are you trying to do more of? Like, is it on have this amount of long form, this amount of short form?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say a specific number, but, I mentioned earlier, it's not my role on the team to be a content creator. So I'm not going to be a content creator, right? I show up and produce the content, that I'm responsible for, but I'm not going like filming on my own. Okay. But like for the most part, like if you look on my personal social media, right, I try to focus on putting my life out there as a mom because that's super important to me. Yeah. My life as a real estate agent, and then I recently took up this hobby of playing tennis. So just mixing up. But really, it's the third one's like building community, right? Yeah. Building community through tennis. So I try to share those things, but I'm really, really good at posting my personal, and I'm really good at collaborating on the content work that I've done. That's easy because someone else is posting it for me. But I think that I know that there's things that I can even do a little bit more, right? Like just being more engaging on personal social media. So I've got to define like what exactly those KPIs are and what I want to hit because I like everything to be attainable and, specific. So I'm working on that. But the other piece of it I think is going to be delivering on the long form, right? We're 2 months into the year, so I've done 2 out of 12.
Nice.
So I've still got some room to grow on that, and then hopefully get some more opportunities. The Orlando Reel is so cool. There's a lot of speaking opportunities. I love to speak. So if I can find a room to get in front of and speak, that's a big part of my bucket list this year. I'm actually speaking on my very first panel at Family Reunion, so that's kind of step one. Congrats. And then I've got invited, thank you, to two speaking events in Orlando to teach other agents, so I'm excited about that. And then I think the other pieces will probably follow, but I'm just looking for ways to grow with the team, with the brand, and content's the way. Content's the way. Oh, but I forgot I was going to say, you guys can just cut that because I remember now. So first speaking event this year, right? It's at Family Reunion. On my first panel, I'm doing 2 speaking events in Orlando, and our media team, the Orlando Reel, we have these really cool opportunities to go talk at like sports events, right? Interview athletes. That's like my language. Yeah. So it's just going to be fun. And like, I have to obviously pick and choose. I don't want to do everything because then I'm not going to do anything really well. But content is a big piece of where we're headed as a company, as a media company, as a real estate company. And so I'm trying to put myself more into those opportunities and not focus only on sales or only on content. And the content piece is growing, but I'm excited to put myself out there more, do live interviews. Like, who on earth? I never thought I would do live interviews. It's funny, though, because I was going to school with a business degree, but I wanted to do broadcast journalism. So, like, it's been like it kind of like, it wasn't even like I did a 180. I was like, I did a 360 and went right down the same path in like a totally different
Just
way.
a different way. Yeah.
Which has been cool because that was like what I really wanted to do was broadcast journalism. And now I'm like, well, we have those opportunities right here on the team. Why don't I jump out and do them? So I think I'm going to have to try some new stuff, but that's going to come in with growing and hitting my full potential for 2025 and beyond. So
you mentioned the sports thing. That's kind of like a cool initiative. The Orlando Reel is starting to branch into sports.
And theme parks.
Theme parks, like all these connections.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the impact of that on like the business? Like maybe how that came into place and then the impact that brought in that's going to bring to be able to do something like that for your business.
You're familiar with Barstool?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea, right? Like, because Barstool has like these sub brands like that do really well.
Yep.
And so for us, that's like the Orlando Reel is the main, and then we have Orlando Reel Sports or Orlando Reel Theme Parks. To be continued. Cannot disclose the others that are coming. But there's a lot of cool stuff in the works, and it's just more attraction, more brand awareness.
Yep.
And we have people right within our company and organization, plus other talented people that I'm sure we'll bring in that own those spaces, and so it's like a no-brainer. So like, for me, I love sports. That would be super fun and easy for me to talk about, and then getting to learn a new skill, like going to do live interviews, and then taking that to like other speaking engagements and other events. That's what I think is so fun about it. But yeah, I mean, they're already taking off. I mean, it's no secret. Like, they've done it once, it's worked once. Like, I'm sure it's no secret that it will work again.
Yeah, I think it's cool to watch, and it's cool to see like someone for you all to execute that at such a high level as a team, and it goes into the point of like, as an example, a lot of times in a lot of teams, people outgrow the team.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I have to start a team. And you said earlier you want to die on the team.
Oh, yeah. It's fun. I have another funny story. So my 5-year anniversary came up on the Posit Group, and we're all like in the office together. Ken gives out this really nice award, gesture, gift when you've hit that milestone. And then he asked me, like, what does this mean to you in front of the team? And like, he's like, could you just share a couple words? I started crying. I started crying. And like, I can hold myself together, right? When I'm talking, like, these are our team members that expect me to be able to stand up and talk. And like, these are people that I mentor and things like that. But I was just crying, like, I like to share that story because I'm like, I think that really embodies like what it means to me to be on the team, how much growth is still ahead for me on the team. Because you bring up a good point. Like, a lot of times when these teams have a lot of A players, the A players outgrow the team. They want to go do something else, or they feel like they could do it on their own. And that is not our culture on the team. It's like, there's so many growth opportunities that we're given. Like, all the things that I'm talking about, I know that I could continue to tackle for years and keep growing personally, professionally, financially, where I wouldn't even want to try it on my own.
Can you explain that to, like, for another team leader as an example?
Yeah.
It's like, what does that vision, that culture have to be like to be able to have such an A player who's doing $50 million a year to say, I just never want to leave?
Yeah. It's, oh man, so many things I want to say. It takes a really special culture. We focus a lot on hiring to culture. And again, those are back to our core values. If it's an agent, it's hungry, humble, curious, social. Okay, what does that look like? Well, Ken shares a funny story. It's called the beer test. So it's like, is this someone that I would want to go have a beer with, sit and have a beer with? You could have a beer with anybody on our team. Like, it's just like that environment. Does it feel like a family? Absolutely. But even more than being a family, we are a team, right? Like, we have standards.
Yep.
We have best practices. We don't like let people fall off the bandwagon just because we love them, right? We actually have tough conversations because we love them. And I think that that's what makes us different, because we truly like want to push and grow, but grow together. The other thing is, like I said, our team, I mentioned earlier, our team has no animosity, right? I feel like to have a team like we do with the retention and the people that want to be here forever, it takes that as well, so that you're not having people like competing against each other.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that the beer test is just an example.
The first time he told me that, it made me laugh. I was like, but you're right. I was like, you're right. Like, I mean, I don't even drink beer, and I could go have a beer with all these people. So that's just been a fun thing. And yeah, like I said, we have a lot of great people on the team. The other thing is we have a lot of different people with different goals, different phases of their life, right? So some people that want to sell a certain amount or a lot of homes, others that they still perform way over the average agent in America, but their goal might be different, and we support them in that because they have their pillars, they know what's important to them, and they are willing to show up and execute on those things. So I think that's also a balance that we have that maybe other teams are a little bit different on.
Yeah. And so first, really quickly, if people want to follow you, they want to get more, where should they go?
Instagram would be the easiest way. I'm always on there. My username is Bree in Orlando.
Nice. Yeah. So when you look at like yourself, you look at the podcast, the balance, and then you look at your business, 50 million, and then you look at, you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a little contradictory in a way.
It is.
It could be.
Everyone told me it wasn't going to work. I mean, there was days that I was questioning, was it going to work? Like I said, people were telling me, you're gonna have to provide for these kids, right? Like, my husband and I we had just bought our first house, right? A month before we had the baby. We had real bills that we needed to take care of, a mortgage. And by the way, I wasn't selling any homes at the time. I had just started on the team. So it was was a big challenge to say like, yeah, I can do this and make this work. But I think if I hadn't taken that chance and gone all in, put my back against the wall because I was married and bought a house and had almost 3 kids, I don't know where I would be today. And, what I had to ask myself along the way, because it's hard to balance those things, is my family is really important to me, but how important is my business to my family? And that's what got me to show up on the hard days, the days I didn't want to do it. Like, I just wanted to be such a great, confident example for my kids and teach them that, you can do these things that seem tough, and like, I'm going to go after it and make the most of it. And now it's given us, like I said, opportunities that we would have never had had I just said, this might be a little too much, a little too overwhelming. And it wasn't always easy. Like, yeah. I mean, just to paint the picture for people that don't have young kids, babies, toddlers, like, you might be like locking yourself in the closet for just a minute to like take that call and then call people back. It's a lot of late nights, it's sacrifices, it's early mornings. But I never missed out on time with my family. It was just a balance between that and actually where I'm at today, which I'm proud to say, not because it's not that I don't work, it's just that I've gotten very intentional on balancing my time. I hardly work the weekends. Ken might be watching this. I hardly work the weekends. And I am pretty much done with work every day by 3:00. And that's awesome. Not because I'm not lead generating. Like, yeah. I'm busting it out from 8 a.m. to 3, right? And then my time with my kids is 3 to 7:30. They're still young, so you go to bed early. And then I'm back on the phones and the computer at night. And that's worked for me. It's worked really well. And it's also given me like, okay, I can do both. And I can do this really well. I can be a great mom, wife, business owner. And I didn't feel like I ever had to choose.
So as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson,
yeah,
it's very easy for someone outside to look at your trajectory and see it as kind of like a straight line up.
Yeah.
But as you know, and you've experienced, it's a lot of ups and downs.
Peaks and valleys. Yeah, it's like Instagram versus reality.
So if you're going to talk to like your kids and going through those points, what would you say to like them or like yourself back in those points? And can you walk me through maybe maybe there's a tough time or challenging moment that you had to move through?
Yeah. I think that probably the most challenging time for me, I think, was when I had my second son, which is surprising. But by the time you get to your third, it's kind of like, yeah, I got this. They're the third. Like, whatever happens, right? Like, I got this figured out. But going from one child to 2, they were only 15 months apart, and then trying to balance the business. We didn't have full-time childcare at the time. Part of that was a financial reason why we didn't have full-time childcare. And I still needed to grow my business, right? So I was fortunate to be on a team culture where, at the time I would pack the kids up, we're going to a team meeting and we are going to call our clients, right? Like doing those things. And so when I look back, and it's amazing because it hasn't even been that long, it's just been such a quick change. I did everything that I needed to do and then some to make sure that I didn't fail. And I think actually in those valleys is where I learned the most about myself. Like, how much grit do I have? How determined? How bad do I want this? And my husband would constantly remind me, like, hey, I want you to do this, but you don't have to do this. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. And he's like, okay, then you got to keep your head down, only focus on you, and just use the tools that you have. You can't look up and get distracted by what so-and-so's doing on social media or anything, right? Like, you got to keep your head down. And if you do the activities, the results are going to come. And so, if I had to paint that picture for my kids, I would want them to know how difficult it really was, but how fortunate I feel and how important I know that my business has been to our family.
And it's amazing to have a partner who's
yes. Well, that. And the funny thing is, my husband's super driven. He's a very high D, no I, all D. Yeah, like he's just a driver, straight to the point. He works in corporate America. Okay. So he also sees like a totally different side of like his career path. And like he works 80-hour weeks just as much as I do. And you're not compensated anymore for that. Right. Yeah. But it's like, he knows he has a job to do and he's expected to show up and do that. And so seeing like also like the sacrifices he gives to go show up and do that with like it's a great company, but maybe let's call it less reward, depending on which way you look at it. You know, I know that, okay, I can show up and do these things and have a lot of reward, and then we can support each other and like really build this legacy for our family that we're shooting for. So to your point, I mean, without that support, it would have been a lot harder. I probably would have thrown in the towel, and I would probably be working in corporate America too, which I never wanted to do, by the way. I promised myself I would never do.
Oh, that's awesome.
And not against those. I mean, corporate America is amazing. I just knew that it wasn't the right fit for me. My mom was an entrepreneur when I was growing up, so again, got to see her face a ton of challenges. She did retail, so it was like opening stores would close, reopen them. How do I rebrand myself and get through this? And I think the challenge was always kind of exciting. So it's like, I think I want that. And then I thought I was a little crazy.
You have to be a little crazy.
You have to be a little crazy to do real estate, I think.
Yeah. To be any type of entrepreneur or business owner, you have to have a little bit of crazy.
A little bit of crazy.
Yeah.